the great Hasidic master, Rebbe Nachman of Breslov. He was a deep thinker, very, very prominent in Hasidic thought. He recommended for all his followers to do what he referred to as hisbodidus, of going alone into wherever. You go into your living room, as long as it's alone, or it could be in a forest, somewhere, and think about yourself, think about life, think about your relationships, think about God, think about your value system, your where you are, your things that you can work on, things that you're great at, and think positive thoughts and all types of things that you think on your own. And he said that we're very often scared to do that, because when we're alone, we're very concerned about who we're going to meet there. We're going to meet ourselves, and that's not someone we're excited to meet.
That was Yehuda Geberer. We were discussing the song Can't Stay Here Long, which I wrote after being inspired by Psalm 16 and a visit to my parents' graves in Jerusalem. I'm Shep Rosenman. This is the Rest is Commentary, where we discuss what songs inspired by the Psalms inspire in my guests. Yehuda is a historian and tour guide of Jewish historical sites in Europe, Israel, and other parts of the globe. He is the host of the popular podcast Jewish History Soundbites and co-author of For the Record column at Mishpacha magazine. He lives with his wife Chana and 4 adorable children in Israel. And Yehuda is my nephew. You can find out more about Yehuda by going to his website, Yehuda Geberer, that's YehudaGeberer.com. In this episode, we discuss the importance of having a sense of humor and when certain types of humor are or are not appropriate, wordplay, participating in history, tapping into eternity, grappling with the past, visiting dead relatives, and so much more. Let's start off by listening to Can't Stay Here Long.
Zigzagging up the edge of this mountain, always bear right at the fork in the road. Park on the gravel, a dusty white fountain, visiting mom and dad's final home. Dress in my pocket, I know the way by heart. Get out of my car and out of my head. Guilt for my absence, I've made it an art. Sad for my losses and things left unsaid. I can't stay here long, bills need their paying, dogs need their walking, and the customers wait. I can't stay here long, our talks are entertaining. I'll see you next month at your graveyard estate. I'm at the sanctum, you lay there together. Pillows of poetry, stones are your clothes. You both look the same, if a tiny bit weathered. I have many sorrows about your repose. I can't stay here long, bills need their paying, dogs need their walking, and the customers wait. I can't stay here long, our talks are entertaining. I'll see you next next month at your graveyard estate. I sit down and smile, ask how you doing. I still see you dancing together at noon. You are still right, I have too much brewing. But will you watch over me every single new moon? Walk backwards 4 paces, I can still see you resting. A tear and a prayer, I'm ready to go. Wash hands at the bottom, my insides are wrestling. Drive out of the gate, my taillights aglow. I can't stay here long, bills need their paying. Dogs need their walking and the customers wait. I can't stay here long, no talk's entertaining. I'll see you next month at your graveyard estate. I'll see you next month at your graveyard estate. I'll see you next month at your graveyard estate.
Here's my spiel. In the same way that I was inspired to write songs generally, but this song in particular, which is variously called A Tiny Bit Weathered or Can't Stay Here Long, I offered that song to you in hopes that it would inspire something in you, whether questions or comments or love, loathing, hope, hatred, or anything else. And so I invite you to kind of speak freely and, let's go wherever your curiosity took you and we'll go from there.
I have my notes open and your lyrics and source sheet open. I'm very well prepared.
Awesome. That's great.
You do this for every song. So it's probably like, it might even be boring already. For me, this is my first time. So it's very exciting.
It's very exciting for me too. The ability to kind of connect with people is kind of what this is all about. And using what I write, inspired by what the psalmists wrote, is an amazing way to kind of get into conversation from my perspective.
You gave me a list of a few to choose from. And I didn't know what the content, I didn't see the lyrics beforehand. You gave me a list of Tehillim, of different chapters of Tehillim to choose from. And I basically chose this one out of a hat. Not out of a hat, out of the 5 or 10 that you gave me. I don't remember how many were on the list. And it happens to be that it was about your parents, my grandparents, which didn't have to be. Could have been another one. So it actually worked out very well. I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of things to say, and I would love to hear, of course, what your inspiration was behind the song too. So definitely, it worked out well to have this one picked in particular.
It is, as they say, bashert.
Right, exactly.
So what are your questions? What are your comments? What do you want to talk about?
First of all, I love the song. I love the lyrics. I love the melody. I am completely ignorant in music styles, so I don't know what music style it is. So I would love to hear what you have to say about that, because I know you're able to compose, in a wide variety of genres of music. So I wasn't able to pinpoint this one.
So this one I would say it's kind of like a folk rock, indie folk, indie rock. It's in that space. I mean, the instrumentation is just what's called a resonator. I have one here. It's not the one I use to record, but I'm in Oxnard now and I have a resonator here and I have a resonator there. And that helps kind of create a folkier feel. Resonators are often used in Americana music, like bluesier, like American roots rock. This has elements of that, but some of the chords and the melodic changes take it out of that. I try to kind of go where I think the song wants to take me, and I don't get too bogged down in making sure each song fits precisely into the recipe of the genre that I'm writing it in. There's wisdom in doing that. I'm going to write a blues tune and then saying it's only going to be blues. My lyrics, my melody. There are times where I will very specifically kind of boundary my music that way. But generally speaking, I try to let the song speak for itself and let it take me where it wants to go. And sometimes it falls squarely into a genre and sometimes it doesn't. So this one doesn't fall neatly into a particular genre. It's like a indie rock, indie folk.
It's nice. I like it. Is it considered more artistically pure the way you describe, because you're letting the music speak for itself rather than boxing it in to certain parameters?
I think it depends on who you ask. There are real aficionados of particular styles will want you to be pure to the style and say, okay, you're a blues artist, so record blues. You're a hard rock, hardcore. You can only record hardcore. Because I don't do this professionally, no one pays me to write this music. I don't feel boundaried by having to be a purist, a professional in that way.
I'm curious, just because it's something that I'm not familiar with. But just what I am more familiar with is the content of the. It's obviously a very clear description of going to what's my Bubby and Zadie and my grandparents and your parents. It's going to visit their graves, presumably either on a visit of yours or a yard site or something. And it's on Har HaMenuchos or Har Tamir in Yerushalayim,
right,
in Jerusalem.
The mountain of rest.
For an eternal rest.
Exactly.
People are dying to get in.
Yeah. The prompt was can't stay here long. I started the process on this with these words. It's been a long time now, because I hadn't seen my parents. It's been a long time now since I've seen you this stoned, right? My parents never smoked pot, at least as far as I know. But that's a pun on the matzeva, the gravestone.
Right.
Sorry for laughing. This situation is grave. So this song started with those kinds of puns your Bubby and Zadie were famous for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They loved puns, especially Zadie, and they would have loved the joke, right? So, that's very funny.
Was Zadie a punster, or did he appreciate it?
Uncle Normie did more puns, but Zadie did puns, yeah, sure. We used to go with him for his walks. He did his walks, especially after his heart attack in the 90s, or his surgery, whatever it was, bypass surgery. So we used to go for his walks. So I remember walking with him once on Seagert in Farakaway, and he said to me, "You know why this street is called Seagert?" I said, "I have no idea. I don't live here." He said, "Because there was once a guy who was walking with his girlfriend on the boardwalk here, and her name was Gert, and he lost her. So he went around asking everyone, 'Did you see Gert? Did you see Gert? Did you see Gert?' So they named the block Seagert, and that was the type of puns. I do that with my kids till today. I feel like it's.
I do it still today too. While I remember Zadie punning, I felt like Bubby punned more. My favorite among them. And it's not just puns, but it's a sense of wordplay. I felt like I got it from her. And sometimes it wasn't expressing words. There's a British style of humor where the punchline is not said. And so this is one of those. My mother would say, "You know what you can do with Nantucket?" And she would never complete it because she never cursed, but she was always playing with words that way from my perspective. And, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't get it from her. Maybe I got it from both of them.
I had much more of a relationship with Zadie but it could be all right.
Memory is fallible. It's possible that, I've decided, or my memory has decided that I got these skills and qualities, good and bad, from my father, and these skills and qualities, good and bad, from my mother, but there was much more overlap.
Right.
I mean, look, I know I got anxiety from my mother, right?
Right.
I think I got both the taciturn, serious face. You often couldn't tell what he was thinking. And then out of nowhere would come this sense of play. One of his closest friends was this guy named Milty. So he used to tell me about how he and Milty, when they were young men, they would walk 4 to 6 feet apart, and one of them would have their arm up, like way above them, and the other one would have their arm down way above them. And they would walk like one step at a time together and just like randomly say out to people, watch out, fragile glass here, even though there was nothing there. They were pranksters. I'm a prankster in that way too. Like for my gullible friends, I will say things I know are not true, and I'll just see if I can get them to believe it.
They had a great sense of humor, especially Zadie, because not all of my grandparents had it. And that's the only way to go through life.
Yeah.
It's a sad situation for people who don't have a sense of humor, because if you can't laugh at things in life, then life is going to be sad and tragic. We like making like these divides. There's different types of people in the world. There's, rightists and leftists. There's rich and poor. There's religious and secular. There's, every possible divide we make. I think the most important one is people who have a sense of humor and people who don't have a sense of humor. The other differences can be worked out as long as you are able to laugh together about things and are able to, otherwise it's just too tense.
Yeah. I think we take humor for granted. And by we, I mean our family, because laughter is just a natural part. It doesn't mean that, there's not yelling or, tears, but laughter happens often. And the idea of making someone laugh comes up a lot. Even if it's, dad jokes and bad jokes, Shari will say, ugh, don't encourage him. But it's all said with laughter. There's teasing there intended to kind of lighten the load.
Right.
And Zadie's sense of humor, by the way, was, whereas Normie he was like a comedian funny. He would tell jokes all the time. He had a little black book that he used to write his jokes in. Unfortunately, it got lost after his death, or perhaps before. And, you'd be walking with him and he would just rattle off joke after joke after joke. If Tzvi was there or I was there, there would be a large proportion of filthy jokes. I mean, just filthy. And if Marion was there, she'd be like, just stop it. But if Tzvi wasn't there, then there would be fewer filthy jokes. And if I wasn't there, there would be even fewer filthy jokes. I mean, I don't know what he did for Mindy and Dasi. By comparison, Zadie, your grandfather, my father, he didn't have a lot of filthy jokes. He just had a few jokes, but he would drop these wisecracks. That's how he was funny. And I think that that's the way I kind of deliver funny too, just these wisecracks and puns.
Right.
But where he was funniest for me was with the black humor, where the dark humor, where about death, sickness, and just bad things that happened. And he would always have a funny about it.
He loved it. And I inherited it. And people hate it initially, but I find it to be wonderful. I remember one in particular, he said he had a doctor once for one thing he needed. I don't remember what it was. His name was Dr. Stephen or something, Kaddish. And he said, Yehuda, this is the doctor you go to after everything is over. Because it's Kaddish.
Right, so explain what Kaddish is.
Kaddish is the prayer that we say, that you describe somewhat in this song. I think you allude to it. I don't know if you
mentioned it.
That you say for the dead. It's the prayer for the Jewish prayer for the dead. That we say on the yard sites, that we say after davening, that we say after they pass away.
I'm just going to translate some of those words. Davening is prayer. Yahrzeit is the anniversary of the date of death.
So I work in Jewish history. I sometimes incorrectly refer to myself as a historian because I don't have any of the real official credentials that you're supposed to have to be a historian. I haven't, middle of a master's, haven't finished it, but I work in Jewish history. So I write, I have a podcast in Jewish history.
What's the name of that podcast?
The podcast is Jewish History Soundbites.
Which you can find where?
Every podcast platform, on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, everywhere.
Nice.
The main thing I do is I'm a tour guide of Jewish history, a little bit in Israel, where I live, and primarily in Europe, where Europe and beyond. I've been to Morocco too, which is in Africa. So where Jews lived, and we visit places where it's rich in Jewish history, and we talk about it. So many of my groups have commented to me that a lot of what I say is not history, but it's kind of like entertaining, meaning it's not boring to listen to. And I always like that as a compliment, because I see the job of a tour guide is not the same as a job of a historian. You're about 50% historian, but you're 50% entertainer. You have to be entertaining. If you're out somewhere and these people are paying a lot of money to hear you and hear these descriptions, and you're taking them around for 4 days and doing tons of talking, hours and hours and hours of talking, and it has to be entertaining. So it's jokes, it's making it light, it's knowing how to shift. And especially since Jewish history, unfortunately, in a lot of the countries you visit, has some tragic endings, because on some of these trips, you're going to be visiting places like Auschwitz, and it's heavy sometimes. So you have to be able to lighten it up. You have to be able to use black humor also when it's appropriate.
At Auschwitz?
Either before or after. And if it's really necessary, you can do something light inside also. You obviously have to read the group, and you have to be able to be smart about it. But that's definitely part of the job description.
Wow. How do you know when to make the joke before, after, or at Auschwitz, and when not to? And is the joke something that's in the moment, or do you have a roster of them that you bring in?
There's a certain how do you say that? Spontaneity.
Yeah.
I'm Israeli. I have to work on my English.
Your English is great.
So there is that moment, and there are definitely some jokes that you review. It's more about reading the crowd and reading the moment. It may be necessary. It may be extremely inappropriate, so you don't say anything. Some groups take it more seriously. Some need to lighten up a little bit. It really depends on, and that's that's maybe a third part of the job: historian, entertainer, and also being a tactful people person that is able to, in the moment, read the crowd and change gears, shift, into transition into different moods. Really, like that. You have to be quick.
It's called being an organizational psychologist.
Okay.
Are there parameters? Are there places you can't go? Or are there places that you bedafka specifically have to go when you're seeking to lighten the discomfort by creating an uncomfortable joke that people will understand as humor?
There are certain parameters. There's, I follow, I think what's accepted to call the Abraham Lincoln law of humor, that there are certain things you don't joke about. I follow that rule. There's red lines. So you don't joke about the black humor. Doesn't mean you're joking about the Holocaust. I would never joke about the actual death or the crimes or the victims, God forbid. It's more about lightening an atmosphere, making some sort of other comment. So, you have red lines.
Do you check in? So your spouse, your wife, is a therapist, psychologist of some sort? Social worker. I wasn't sure what the titles are in Israel. Do you check in with her on these kinds of issues?
Yeah. And she usually disagrees with me.
And do you take that disagreement as, okay, I can go there, or, I better not go there?
It depends. Sometimes I back down, but sometimes I hold. Sometimes I should really always listen to her in anything at any time. But
why is that? And I know that we're a little bit playing, but it's also serious.
Yeah. Because Chana, that's my wife. She's smarter, very, very perceptive people and society and codes and social rules and she understands kids and education, anything that's important in life. She just got it better than me. So that's the general rule.
And when you want a yes, do you go to your brother Nathaniel? Because he'll say yes to anything.
I don't go to Nathaniel.
Okay, I do want to go back to this idea of laughing at life. Are there people in your life who don't have enough of a sense of humor? And if there are, like, how do you deal with them?
First of all, there's loads of people in my life with a challenged sense of humor. So, of course, the way I deal with it is my ground rule is the same way I've read lines. I obviously don't make jokes about inappropriate things. So my other red line is I'll never do anything knowingly to offend anybody. So, if you're eventually your social circles, especially at the stage of life and not where I'm in, where I see life as kind of like these groups of 20 years or 25 years. First 25 years of your life, you're growing up, your social circle is very important, your friends. The second 25 years, you're very much focused on career and raising a family, at least in my case.
Same here.
I think a lot of people like that. So your friend social circle plays a much less role. It comes back eventually when your kids are out of the house and married and whatnot, and you're on a golf course in Florida or wherever you end up when you're 65. So then all of a sudden friends mean a lot again, because that's, it becomes a stronger component of your social life. Right now, you're really, really picking and choosing. You don't have that much time and energy for social life. And you're going to develop those relationships with people who are like-minded, who you have more of a common language with and more in common with. And in this case, people who get it, who get your sense of humor, and other people, whether it's neighbors or people on the block, or you're going to be friendly, but you're not going to develop meaningful relationships at this point because you're not speaking the same language.
Yeah. The whole friendship thing is fascinating. I mean, I've found in our case that, and I want to distinguish between our case, meaning Sherry's and mine, and I also wanted, there's another layer of distinctions between me and Sherry. We approach these kinds of relationships differently. I think where we very much align is, as our kids were growing up, we found parents among their friends that we were close with. And then, as we kind of got to know people better and saw that they weren't really our cup of tea, or, things changed, people moved away, whatever, then some of those relationships fell away. But I think close friends while our kids were growing up was very, very important. It's how we leverage those friendships that's changed now that our kids are out of the house. Like, we still have many of the same friends, Naomi and Jason are still among our closest friends. Our kids were friendly with their kids, and Naomi and I have known each other since we were 16. I was 16, She was 15. But, now that she and her family live in New York again, we see them less, but they're still among our closest friends. We Zoom. She comes out here a lot for business and to see her daughter. When we're in New York, we always see her. Same with my friend Alan Applebaum. When I'm in New York, I always make sure to see him. And those are kind of like the people, them at Zev Fried and other people who I've known since I was a kid. They're my closest, like there's this inner circle. And then there's a concentric circle around that of people who I'm still very close with, but the through lines, the regularity of contact is less consistent. And things change. It's situational. When we're up in Oxnard, we don't have a ton of close friends here. In fact, I don't know that we have anyone who yet falls into that category. And I say we in that context, but it's different for Sherry. She has people that she's growing increasingly close with up here. We're both introverts and extroverts. Like, we both need a lot of alone time. And when we're in like a public setting, we're very gregarious and like as a young person, I was just very, very shy. But now it's like I'm out, like wherever I am, as long as I kind of understand my role, whether my role is, okay, this is a set of people I know, or this is a set of people I don't. Like, as long as I understand where I am, then I'm good in that environment. In contrast to Sherry, like I have many, many friends that I will go into kind of deep relationship with. I just don't speak to them that often.
Right.
It's just a different way of friending, if you will.
Totally understand that. I mean, I'm kind of like that because most of my closest friends live in America, in the United States, and I live in Israel. So our relationship is, no one does phone calls anymore. So it's WhatsApp. Once in a while I'm there or they're here, and they're still my close friends. I just, you really don't. And all of us are busy because all of us are in our late 30s, early 40s, still building our careers, young kids at home who need a lot of care and attention. So, a friend of mine was sick this past winter. I got on a plane, spent 3 days with him.
That's beautiful.
And was in New York for 3 days. So that's because he's a close friend and he's 6,000 miles away.
Right.
So I just felt like it was the right thing to do. And he's all better, by the way. So
thank God.
Great.
That's great.
Yeah. So the friendships are important and they're close friendships. And what's incredible, what I found is that no matter how little you speak to those close friends, as soon as you do meet, you pick right back up, and it's as if you never left off.
Yeah,
there were
for
some
sure.
things that I found very profound in your song. You have this very vivid description, it's a kind of dark description too. It's a pretty dark song, I gotta say. What led me to say is that, okay, the reason it's dark is because, first of all, it's a cemetery, it's death, and it's your parents, which, there's the death of the parents and all the baggage and everything and memories and all that comes together. So it has to be dark. It's not going to be a lightish. By the way, it's funny because one of the tours I do in Israel is I go on a history tour of Har HaMenuchos. And, all types of famous personalities are buried there and pretty fun tour. And I'm there all the time. It's because it's history. It's not like a morbid thing. It's like pointing out who these people were and what their accomplishments were and things like that. But I haven't, it's always like you're in work mode. You know what I mean? And so I haven't been by your parents in God knows how many years. I can't even remember. So it's funny that like I'm in that cemetery all the time and I haven't been there. But the general vibe of the cemetery. And what it got me thinking was, why do we visit? Why do we visit cemeteries in general? And I basically live in cemeteries because I'm visiting Jewish cemeteries with every type of group all over the world. And specifically, what many people have the custom to do is what you were describing in the song, is visiting relatives or parents. Why do we do that? What pulls us there? So I was trying to grapple with that a little bit. And what I thought is unbiased, because I think in the context of my job that it's a means of connecting to the past, whether it's in a personal way to your parents, grandparents, or it's in a collective way of, great people, historical figures. And we want to, see something tangible and hear about their lives and their legacy and things like that. So it's a means of connecting to the past, anchors us in some sort of value system or legacy or history. And, in a sense of continuity. And I look at myself and I can contemplate, well, maybe I'm continuing this legacy in my own way. And we as creatures of the physical world need these visuals and tangible physical manifestations. I can't lie in bed at night and think about my grandparents or, in a collective sense, great people who lived in the past, because that's too abstract. But if I physically walk into a cemetery and I stand in front of the physical resting place of someone, and then I contemplate, that enables me to connect more to that past.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I love some of your language. touching legacy and continuity. When you go to visit Bubby and Zaidi or a founder of Israel or Maimonides or whomever you're going to see, it's a way of concretizing, literally concrete with the matzeva, the headstone, the loss. And you're experiencing a moment of palpable difference. Because when you're at home on your couch or in front of your computer and say, I'm really impacted by the Rambam, it's different than when you look at the Rambam's headstone and say, wow, he lived in Egypt and Spain and landed in Israel at that time. It makes the experience much more concrete. I think that
right,
which aligns very much with what you're saying, is really just an amplification of it.
Yeah.
But I think that there's something else going on too, because there are people in the world who won't experience that sense of loss. It's all just up in their heads. And they say, the Rambam, lived in the 13th century. Is that right? 12th century, something like that?
Yes.
So, that was a long, long time ago. I don't really feel it. Yeah, I've read the words of the Rambam, but I've separated the words of the Rambam from the Rambam himself. I am going to honor the Rambam. It's not about feeling, it's about feeling a sense of obligation to honor what the Rambam or your grandparents or, whoever died that it is you're going to visit. It's about honoring them, even if you're not feeling anything. You're just feeling like, I'm doing something good for them. And a lot of that has to do with what your spirituality is, your theological and other views are about what happens when your body is no longer walking this earth. Is there a spirit? Does your body transform into something else? Are there Gilgulim, reincarnation? Depending on your view there, you may have a different view of what function it serves to go visit someone at a cemetery.
Right.
But certainly from my perspective, the language that you use that most impacted me is you are continuing the chain. So whether you're visiting non-family, which non-family members are buried at some of them, just give me an example from Haram Nuchos.
Rebbe Moshe Feinstein.
Okay, so whether you're continuing the chain of his learning by explaining who he was in the constellation of rabbinic greats throughout history, or you're specifically saying Rebbe Moshe Feinstein was important in the 20th century because when you're giving over that history, you're not just giving over history. You're placing your listeners in a context and you are explaining to them how that has impacted them today.
Exactly.
Which is why the idea of going to a cemetery is honestly, it's no different than going to the place where Moshe Feinstein grew up, or the yeshiva he learned in, and going to the seat that was his seat. When you're a young person, you don't always think like this. You don't understand that you are participating in history. Some people do. I did not. So you know what? I'm not going to make it about anyone but me. I had the privilege to play engagement parties at YU and have Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, that's the brother who taught at YU.
Well, there was Rabbi Yosef Dov Soloveitchik, and his brother was Rabbi
Aaron Soloveitchik. So I don't remember which one it was, and that says something. But one of them came down to complain about the noise at the engagement party. Like, if I knew that he was upstairs wherever he was, might I have behaved differently, or might I have had a snotty teenager attitude that said, this is my friend's engagement party, I'm playing at it. I didn't have the context then. Similarly, I played some gigs as a young person. I don't know if I was in my teens or my early 20s at 770 Eastern Parkway, right? Is that the address?
Oh, wow. That's an address.
Right, so that's the headquarters for Chabad Lubavitch worldwide. And I had the opportunity to stand in line and get $1 from the Rebbe. I had a friend I was going to meet in the city and it was taking too long, so I left. Put it in context. I don't have a lot of regrets, but I regret not getting the $1 from the Rebbe.
Right.
Not, you know what? I have two regrets there. There's one that I didn't get a bracha, a blessing from the Rebbe, but also that I didn't have the experience. They're two separate concepts there.
Yeah, the experience is on its own merit. Yeah. I end off every single trip I ever do. I tell the group, My hope is that at the end of this trip, we go back to our lives, families, communities with a commitment, with a greater commitment to that the chapter of history that we're writing currently is no less glorious than any of the previous ones have been. Because our lives are simply writing, whether we like it or not, the reality of our lives is that we're writing a chapter in history.
Yep.
And we might as well make it a good one.
Early on, because there were many people around me who, were angry and frustrated and willing to express that a lot, and this is certainly true of people I've worked with, I really try to inhabit, I forget the first part of the phrase in Hebrew, to greet kol adam b'sever panim yafot. Encounter every human with a...
Right. It means like with a pleasant face. Just...
The root of the word sever is the same as svara.
I would imagine.
Right? So,
yeah, I honestly...
So svara is a logic with a logic of a beautiful face. It doesn't mean logic, but it's this very kind of strange formulation. The point is, come to the world with a smile. Assume the best.
Right.
Welcome people. It's not like I don't think this is true anymore, but like the classic kind of New York attitude of the 70s where, you pass someone, they wouldn't say hello, they'd growl at you if you said something to them.
The New York that you grew up in.
For sure. And by the way, look, my father was a growler, People would come into his store. Yeah. He was the face of customer service. And, he would be short with people. And that's just not how I consider doing customer service. And perhaps some of my attitude about this is learning from observing what not to do. Now, to be clear, my father wasn't always that way. With customers he liked, he was as solicitous as he could be. With the pains in the tuchus, or the people who were mean or the people who were trying to take advantage, he was a brawler, so he would brawl. So what else are you curious about?
The chorus, I loved it. I loved it because you can't stay long because there's bills, there's clients, there's life. And basically what we're saying is we go through this all day, not just when we're in the cemetery.
Yeah.
We're up against things that require contemplation, things that are heavier, darker. And we say, no, I can't handle it. I can't bear the past. I can't bear the silence of a mountain, of a place like that. I can't bear the sound of silence. I can't bear the things that are left unsaid. You allude to things left unsaid. Things left unsaid hang in the air.
Yeah.
And they haunt us. So we want to run back to those bills. It's we can't contemplate. We can't stand with guilt. Sometimes there's guilt involved. And it's imperative that we return to reality.
Yeah.
And reality is bills and clients, customers, life. We need that distraction. And the great Hasidic master, Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, he was a deep thinker, very, very prominent in Hasidic thought. He recommended for all his followers to do what he referred to as hisbodidus, of going alone into wherever. You go into your living room, as long as it's alone, or it could be in a forest, somewhere, and think about yourself, think about life, think about your relationships, think about God, think about your value system, your where you are, your things that you can work on, things that you're great at, and think positive thoughts and all types of things that you think on your own. And he said that we're very often scared to do that because when we're alone, we're very concerned about who we're going to meet there. We're going to meet ourselves, and that's not someone we're excited to meet. Here we're not meeting ourselves. Here we're grappling with the past, with the graves, with the dead, so to speak. But there's this desire that we need to get back to the bills and customers because we can't contemplate. We don't like leaving the silence and things unsaid. I really think what you really mean, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I think that what you mean also is really a whole nother layer of depth, is that I can't stay here. Where's the here? Here is in this world. we're in a cemetery, and all of a sudden we confront our mortality. So we say, we can't stay in this world so long. We're going to be, we see the transitory existence that we have. And to a certain extent, we're confronting a certain meaningless of our corporeal life.
Sure.
And that's very harsh. So we say, no. My life is real and meaningful. I have customers. I have bills to pay. Let me run away from this confrontation with the transitory existence, with the fact that I'm mortal. I'm not going to be here for long, and let me pretend that I will be here for a long, long time. I have lots of bills to pay, lots of customers to have, and I'm going to be here forever. And that struggle is really what you're describing in this chorus, I think.
Yeah.
At least it's what it meant to me.
First of all, what it means to you to me as a songwriter is more important than what it means to me. Like, if you're getting something out of it, it's moving, even if I didn't intend it, I am thrilled, right? But in this particular case, you're spot on. The "I can't stay here long" line is a pun. It's a double entendre. It has multiple meanings. It's "I can't stay here at this cemetery long." It's "I can't stay here in whatever activity I'm doing. I can't stay here on this earth for a long time." And all of that is borne out, I think, in the third line of the bridge. "You are still right. I have too much brewing."
Right.
My father would always say that, "You're too busy." And my mother would say the same thing, like, "Just sit and relax." And I am really bad at meditating. I do it. I don't do it often enough or regularly enough or for long enough, but I do it. But I'm bad at it. Like, my brain is on fire, and I have to really learn how to kind of reel it in, because my to-do list, actual and conceptual, is just too long. And I think that the reason why I want to meditate more and deeper is because I need to not worry so much about the doing, and for me, the doing is how you live life. And I've learned in recent years, as I approach my 60th birthday, that sometimes it's just about being. So when we're up in Oxnard, like, at the end of the day, Sherry and I will take a chair and go to the beach. And when the dog's with us, we throw the ball. If the dog's not with us, we'll just sit there, watch the sunset, chit-chat with each other. Are we, quote, doing anything? Well, yes, we are sitting at the beach. But there's not much doing going on unless we're in one of those intense conversations about, struggles, kids, family, the firm. But by and large, that doesn't happen at the beach because we are decompressing. And then, of course, when we come back from the beach, there's dinner, there's maybe some TV. And, if Sherry and I are watching bad TV, I'm down here writing music or recording or editing podcasts or working. We take this moment to just be. Then we go back to it. Like, I can't stay here long. The customers wait. And I use customers because my father had customers. I have clients. Customers sings much better and the client, like, dogs need their walking and the clients will wait. Just don't like it. Customers works better. But I think that these moments where you take the break, whether it's in your living room or in the forest or at the beach or you're meditating, that's an important part of life too. To the extent that legacy is important to you because you want someone else to touch your legacy. And that's what this project is all about.
I was trying to figure out how it's connected to this chapter of Tehillim, the 16th chapter of Tehillim.
Mm-hmm.
So I know obviously that the custom is to recite this chapter of Tehillim when one visits a cemetery, especially when one visits parents in a cemetery. So that's the obvious connection.
Yep.
But I did take note, because you shared it on the source sheet also, that several times in this chapter 16 of Tehillim, it describes a way of tapping into eternity by connecting to God, by tapping into godliness.
Mm-hmm.
It says it in the 5th pasuk, Hashem enas chelki. Hashem is, God is my portion, the kosi and my cup, which is a figure, metaphor. Ata tomich early, you support my destiny, basically. And even more so towards the end, in the 9th pasuk, it says that it's coming off of Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Summit. In the 8th pasuk, it's coming to say that Hashem, God, is in front of me at all times. There's this omnipresence of God together with me. And then the next pasuk says, L'chein, because of that, as a result of the fact, Samach libi, my heart is happy, Vayagel kavaydi, and this glad, it's a poetic form of repetitiveness. Af besari yishkain levetach. So even if besari is my physical body, yishkain will lie, obviously after I'm dead. Levetach, it's okay. It's going to be secure. It's going to be safe.
Right.
Why? And it continues, and I'm not going to go ahead and translate everyone. It's a little too choppy that way. But basically what it says is after that, and to end off this psalm, this chapter, it says because there's this eternity. There's this eternal satisfaction. There's this eternal pleasantness because of the connection to God. And I feel like one of the big ideas, again, in Hasidic thought is that God has this Ein Sof, he's called, is this eternal light, eternal being.
Yeah, Ein Sof literally means is without end.
Without end, right. And we can be eternal. We don't have to be mortal. We can be immortal. I can't stay here long, like we said before, about this struggle that we have, that we're contemplating our own mortality, and we're confronting the temporary, transitory state of our existence on earth. And there's this comforting thought in this, expressed in this chapter of Tehillim, that we could be transformed from the material and the limited to something which transcends limitations of time and space and meaning. And that might be the answer to the darkness expressed in the chorus. We're running. We can't stay. We're busy with the clients and bills. But in the cemetery, in the place of death, standing with loved ones, our parents, our grandparents, whose temporary existence has already ended, and we contemplate our own frighteningly short experience on this earth. And very often, at least with me, it goes along with this sense of lack of accomplishment. And, oh God, I haven't done anything. I haven't done, I wanted to do, I have this long list of things to do, and I'm not doing anything.
How many hundreds of episodes have you produced?
All right. Yeah, that's good. That's also comforting. That's also eternal, right? The recordings last forever.
Right.
But at that moment, we recite this specific psalm, which is a sense of comfort, that we can tap into eternity and give meaning to our existence by connecting to something greater than ourselves, and lift ourselves up by being cognizant of this reality. And we have this soul, which is godliness, and we behave like that. We have this power, and that can also help us. I was listening to one of these podcasts, I don't remember which. You can give meaning to people around you by being nice to them. So even if your life might not have any existential meaning, but you can give it meaning by being nice to other people. And it gives you serenity and happiness, peace of mind, because now you're doing something eternal. You're doing something greater than yourself.
Well, I think that is the core message of this Tehillim. And that last line underscores that. Ne'imos, that which is pleasant, na'im, bimincha netzach. Now, netzach, the translation that Sfaria has up here doesn't do it justice. It says bimincha, in your right hand, but delights are ever in your right hand. Ne'imos bimincha netzach. I would translate that as the pleasantries, the being nice, presumably to yourself and to other humans, are what you'll hold up in your right hand as evidence of netzach, victory. That's how you emerge victorious from life, by being pleasant. It's the same as b'sever panim yafos.
Right.
Now, that's probably a bit of a drash on the verse, but otherwise kind of, it doesn't make sense. Nice things will emerge in your hands.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
It has to be telling you, be nice. The work of your hands should include being nice. And whether it's typing on a keyboard, whether it's clicking record on a podcast, whether it's walking down the street and saying hello, that's how you maximize, as you put it, the frighteningly short time on earth. It's connection.
That was great. I loved it. Brings me back to a lot of the conversations we had back in the day.
Yes, for sure. All right. Well, this was awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, Yehuda. Where can people find you as a tour guide?
They can find me at yehudageberer.com. That's my website. YEHUDAGEBERER.com. Or just email me, Yehuda at yehudageberer.com.
Awesome. I love you so much. I'm so glad we get to have talks like this.
I love you.
Both recorded and just like this. Thanks so much for listening. Special thanks to Emil Stern and E. Rose for their help in producing this episode, and to Jessica Chana Swedler for her help on social media. You can find Can't Stay Here Long and all of the other songs in this song cycle on most platforms that stream or download music, including Spotify and Apple. In the next episode of The Rest is Commentary, I will be talking with writer-director Anne Pinheiro Guimarães. We're going to talk about the difference between being reflective and being judgmental, dealing with judgmental people, strategies for not being judgmental, being kind to yourself, where creativity comes from, strategies to add juice to your creativity, and so much more. Please join us.